The Cubs win the series against the St. Louis Cardinals and set themselves up on a hot streak heading against the Minnesota Twins this week at Wrigley Field. We're going to talk about that as well as a few top Cubs prospects that got promoted to AAA. That and more on this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. Make sure to like and subscribe, get in that comment section, ring the bell, and follow us all over. And here is your invitation to our show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs Baseball Channel. My name is Anthony Pasquale. You can find me on Twitter at @Ant_Pasquale3. You can also find the Cubs Baseball Channel on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. So follow us on there. Engage with those different platforms as we try to talk to as many Cubs fans as possible in as many different places as possible and grow this channel, not only here on YouTube, but on those different platforms as well. But let's talk about it. The Cubs with a huge win yesterday, beating the Cardinals 6-2. They win the series 3-1, a really strong showing on Sunday. Honestly, I think that's one of the better wins of the season. And you're probably going, Anthony, I thought you said that the win of the year was that first game of the series. And I'm sticking by that. That walk-off win to come back against Helsley and Dansby Swanson getting it going, Mike Tauchman with the walk-off hit, that was the win of the season. But to blow that game on Saturday, to have that lead and have it taken away from you and to go down with another loss, your 21st blown game of the year, but then to answer on Sunday Night Baseball, your ace on the mound, and to go out there and get a win, that's a huge showing. It puts the Cardinals in their place. It's they might have a little bit of a lead on us in the division, but I think this weekend proved to everybody that they are not a better team than the Cubs are. The Brewers are struggling. It's a good time to get hot, and the Cubs have a schedule that will allow them to do so. But all you have to do is go out there and win ball games. You got to take care of business on that day, and that's what the Cubs were able to do yesterday. Steele was excellent yesterday. He got the win. 6 2/3 innings pitched, went pretty deep into the ball game. The only 2 runs he allowed were on a basket shot home run early in the ball game in the third. He settled in nicely after that. Only allowed 3 hits, 6 strikeouts, 6 2/3 innings from your ace, and he gets the win, his third of the season. Followed by Porter Hodge, Tyson Miller, and Julian Merriweather, all turning in scoreless outings out of the bullpen, and the Cubs ride it to a 6-2 win. But the offense, once again, which has been the story of this series with the St. Louis Cardinals, was the story once again. We're going to talk about Crow-Armstrong here. Obviously had that tough, not error, but misplay on Saturday, led to the Cubs' loss. He responded with a 2-hit ball game, starting to heat up. And you guys might be like, oh, he's only hitting 199. Well, batting average isn't everything. And I think anybody who is watching the games these last couple of weeks can tell that he's finally starting to hit the ball hard. He's finally starting to lay off on pitches outside of the zone. And he's on a 3-game hitting streak, 2 hits yesterday, 1 hit on Saturday, 1 on Friday. Really good effort from him as of late. Having some power too, some doubles, some triples. That's good to see from Crow-Armstrong. He's starting to look a little bit more confident in the box. He had a pair of hits, and then the other 2 guys with a pair of hits, Mike Tauchman and Miguel Amaya, and they each had a pretty big hit in those as well. Miguel Amaya and Mike Tauchman both launched homers to keep the Cubs giving some insurance runs and keep them ahead of the Cardinals. Michael Busch had an RBI single. Cody Bellinger drove in a run with a sac fly, and Dansby Swanson drove in a run with an RBI ground out. But the production was pretty steady across the board. Ian Happ was scratched from the ball game with left shoulder soreness from trying to make that play Saturday up against the wall. So he was scratched from the ball game. Mike Tauchman took his spot in left and turned in one of his better games of the year. 2 for 4. That solo shot homer also came around to score twice, made some nice plays out in the field. Cubs turned in an errorless ball game. It was just good baseball all around yesterday, and they win the series 3-1. And I know the hard thing to think about is, man, instead of being 8.5 back, they should be 7.5 back. They should have won that game on Saturday. They should have swept the Cardinals. They should only be 1 game back of the Cardinals. Yeah, all of that's true. that loss on Saturday sucks. It's going to be one that we go back to and think, man, that really could have helped. But the fact that they were able to go out there and respond, answer their own misdoings, and answer with a W, I think that says a lot about the character of this ball club. And they're starting to get some confidence. I think Mike Tauchman said after the game that we believe in ourselves to string a few wins together. We think we can rattle off some wins. So we'll see if they can continue to do that. But like we said, the Cubs beat the Cardinals 6-2. That improves them now to 17-26 on the year against the NL Central. It was once 13-25, and the Cubs are 4-1 in their last 5 games against the NL Central. They're going to need to keep that up. They're now done with the Brewers and done with the Cardinals, but they still have the Reds and they still have the Pirates coming up over the next month and a half, 2 months before the season ends. So they're going to need to get back in the win column against those teams. Also, 11 out of the Cubs' next 14 ball games against the AL Central. They play the Twins, they play the White Sox, they play the Guardians, then they play the Blue Jays, and then they play I think one more series against the AL Central. I think the Twins once more. So you're going to see these teams a lot. Going to need to take care of business against the AL Central in the next coming weeks as well. The Cubs are 4 games under 500 at the current moment, up to 4th place. They leaped the Reds because not only did the Reds lose, but the Brewers lost, obviously the Cardinals lost, and the Pirates lost. So the Cubs gained a full game on the whole division yesterday, 8.5 back in the NL Central, 6 back in the NL Wild Card. They're not quite catching those teams that currently hold the spots, but the Cubs are narrowing the deficit between the other teams that they're chasing. They're only, taking a look at it now, they're only a game and a half back behind the Giants. They passed the Reds, they've passed the Nationals, and obviously they just did some good work against the Cardinals to narrow that gap as well. The Cubs' chances to make the playoffs are on the rise ever so slightly after this weekend. The Cubs with now a 7.1% chance to make the playoffs and a 3.8% chance to win the NL Central. But that's not the only news we have. The Cubs winning the series, obviously a good talking point and a good thing to be proud of. Obviously, the main punchline of today's episode. But here's some very interesting news. James Triantos, Matt Shaw, and Kevin Alcantara have graduated AA in the Tennessee Smokies and have been promoted to AAA Iowa. Now, this comes at the beginning of August, so they'll have at least a month and a half, 2 months more of baseball to play at the AAA level, potentially maybe even seeing some action in the big leagues toward the end of the season. But if you wanted to see Matt Shaw or James Triantos or Kevin Alcantara in the bigs this year, you needed to get them to AAA sooner rather than later, and they all go up there together. So obviously, Shaw and Triantos, second base, third base types, maybe a little bit of shortstop, but we'll see them play those positions. Alcantara, obviously an outfielder. He'll be out there with Alexander Canario and Owen Casey, potentially all guys who you might see in the big leagues over the next month and a half, 2 months before the season ends in the big league level, especially if the Cubs fall fully out of playoff contention. You want some of these guys to come up and get at least a taste of the big leagues before next season, when you're going to be relying on at least some of them pretty heavily. But that is the big news coming out of the minor leagues on Sunday, that Triantos, Shaw, and Alcantara are heading to AAA Iowa. We'll keep you guys posted on how they start up there in Iowa. It'll be nice to see their debuts with the AAA team, and if they could stay hot like they have been at the plate all season long. No off day today. The Cubs take on the Twins tonight at Wrigley Field, sticking on the homestand. The Cubs haven't announced their probables for the whole series. All they have is tonight's starter, which is Kyle Hendricks, who's 3-9 on the year with a 6.86 ERA. He's up against David Festa, who in limited action is 1-2 with a 6.98 ERA. Hendricks is a guy that the Cubs have relied on a lot of times over the course of his career in Chicago, and he has been an excellent story, a hero on the World Series team that won in 2016. But the Cubs need him to turn in a good outing tonight. They need him to be somebody they can rely on. The bullpen obviously has been taxed as of late just because they've been playing so many games. Steele did a good job pitching into the 7th inning. Porter Hodge got out of it with just 2 pitches. Neris didn't pitch, so those guys should be available. But the fact of the matter is you can't afford to have Hendricks go 4 innings and give up 5-6 runs. You need him to at least pitch into the 5th or hopefully the 6th, keep it 3 runs or less, and I think you have a good chance to win the ball game against the Twins. Cubs offense has been looking a lot better. So hopefully you get, 3-4 runs out of the Cubs offense, and the Cubs pitching and bullpen can keep the Twins off the scoreboard. But you need a strong start from Hendricks, and I believe in him. We'll see if he can do it tonight at Wrigley Field. But guys, thanks so much for tuning into the Cubs baseball channel. We always appreciate you talking some Cubs baseball with us, just chopping it up. As always, you can find us here on YouTube, but also on Twitter, TikTok, and on Instagram. So follow us on there. Get in the comment section. Let us know if you think this team has what it takes to make a little bit of a playoff push as we rear into the dog days of summer. But for now, we will talk to you tomorrow, hopefully after another Cubs W. Go Cubs.